Hello, nerds, and welcome back to the Salawag's Why It's Great Gut Reaction, where I watch things and react from the gut. So this is another delayed reaction. I saw Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness again recently, and I just had such a great time watching it. I really think Sam Raimi behind the wheel is always worth a watch. I don't own that many of his movies, but I do need to go back and get them. I think I've seen at least most of his films. Sam Raimi is one of the masters. I follow very particular masters, and I watch their work very closely because I'm very interested in how they direct, how they make their movies, because they make choices, and they in their commentaries and then behind the scenes they'll just tell you straight up what their choices are, why they make them. That's why I follow very religiously Sam Raimi, Christopher Nolan, and Guillermo del Toro. Del Toro being, Del Toro and Nolan. I'll never miss their movies on the big screen. If they have something coming out on the silver screen, I'm watching it. No matter what I gotta do, I'm gonna watch it. Like Pinocchio and Raimi. Unfortunately, I have not caught all of his movies in theaters. I have wanted to. I've meant to. But fortunately, I did catch Strange in theaters, and honestly, Multiverse of Madness, I've rewatched quite a few times. The first time I watched it, I was not quite as affected by it. I thought it was a lot of fun, but I just didn't feel like I got that much out of it. But when I watched it the second time on the smaller screen, I really absorbed the scope of it. Raimi really has a sense of scope, and especially for a comic book movie, he knows how to show that scope in an effective and entertaining way. I think Spider-Man 2 is still his best superhero film, but I'll put Multiverse of Madness right behind the first Spider-Man. So Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man, Multiverse of Madness as his top three comic book related movies, and then Army of Darkness right behind that. But if we're talking Sam Raimi lists, Spider-Man 2 and Evil Dead 2 are top of the list. I don't care how good The Gift is. I don't care how good A Simple Plan is. I fucking love Spider-Man 2 and Evil Dead 2. I've definitely rewatched them the most out of all of his movies. But Multiverse of Madness, just that opening scene, I love how it just starts off with this amazing, epic, beautiful action sequence. And my parents have a pretty good big screen in at their house, so I had decided to watch Multiverse of Madness. It was the only movie I felt like, what can I watch where I can really appreciate the scope of things? And that's what I picked because I was just like, that whole opening 30 minutes has so much incredible, enthralling, visually spectacular action. And you really see both the growth of Raimi and his control of scope, but also his the growth of the technology to show what Raimi really wants to do. So that opening action sequence when they're looking for the Book of Vishanti, and they're in this big floating world or this big floating dimension where there's energy and floating ruins of buildings and all this stuff. And Doctor Strange and Jolty, I hope I say your name right, Jolty Gomez as America Chavez. Seeing Doctor Strange and America Chavez hopping from these floating pieces of building one to the other and being chased by a weird creepy monster that totally feels like it's out of Evil Dead. That was such an incredible visual opening. And it's still very Marvel. I think the truth is he's maintaining the MCU looks. I'm whatever if there's not enough character or dialogue, whatever. Doctor Strange still makes a big important character choice in the beginning of this movie where he's not our main MCU Doctor Strange. He's Defender Strange who has a ponytail, and it's incredible how he makes a not too dissimilar of a choice of what he does at the end of Endgame, where at the end of Endgame, he main Doctor Strange essentially allows Tony Stark to sacrifice himself in order to save the universe. And here he is at the start of Multiverse of Madness, where he's like, look, if I let this evil demon take your powers, then that's going to be devastating for the entire universe. So I need to take your powers. Defender Strange tries to take her powers. and it's a shocking moment for her because, like, if you take my powers, you're going to kill me. And that's essentially the stakes set forward from the movie, and this creates a context for her when she runs into our main Doctor Strange. And I'm sorry, I'm just kind of going into this movie. If you haven't seen Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, go check it out. This is really for people who have seen it, and whether you liked it or not, I don't care. I really don't care if you liked it or not. I liked it. I loved it. Every time I watch it, I love it more. Uh, but you know, this choice that Defender Strange makes creates a certain reaction out of America Chavez, where she's like, "Oh, I can't trust this guy." And she says she's met two, so who knows what happened to the previous one. But certainly Defender Strange got killed while trying to kill her. When America Chavez meets our main MCU Doctor Strange, she immediately doesn't trust him because she's certain that this guy's just going to come to the same conclusion the previous one did. And but they have a journey. They have a great journey between each other and trying to travel the multiverse to get away from the Scarlet Witch, played by Elizabeth Olsen. I really enjoy this movie. I really, really enjoy this film. It's so visually wonderful, but there is a great character arc here. WandaVision came out prior to Doctor Strange, and actually, I was watching the commentary, and the filmmakers talked about how they were able to watch some of the episodes of WandaVision, and they were talking to the writers during the course of making both shows, so they really knew what they were getting into. It was Spider-Man No Way Home that they actually had no idea what really happened in that movie before it happened, so they didn't refer to that one as much. But I really love this movie for how deep it goes into character. I think Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch is so motivated by her losses, and I had rewatched the first 3 episodes and the last 2 episodes of WandaVision before going back and rewatching Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and seeing how much she loved Vision, because so much of it was off screen in the movies. But the show takes the time to at least establish that there was a ongoing relationship that was happening between them, and not only that, but just how much it meant to her, especially when you consider that in Age of Ultron she lost her brother but gained a lover, and so she kind of had someone to lean on after she lost her brother. But with the ending of Avengers Endgame and definitely Infinity War, she had lost the lover, and not only that, she killed her own lover in order to prevent the end of the universe, and it didn't even matter. And especially rewatching the last 2 episodes of WandaVision, when you see that, you know, prior to the events that the show starts on, she had found Vision's body, and it was being reworked on by American government agents. These are the same people that she was opposing before she became an Avenger. And now she's seeing them work on the body of Vision as if, you know, he wasn't a person, he's just some machine that they can turn back on. And she was so grossly, disgustingly offended and insulted and hurt by this. You can see all the seeds that would make her a villain right there, right in that exact moment. And in fact, it was kind of a surprise to me in that moment that she didn't become a villain right there. That she still had the self-control, but possibly because it was Vision's body, she just had a moment of closure. But then in that same flashback episode, she has this last gift from Vision, which was that he had intended for them to build a house together, and had bought this little plot of land in a little suburban neighborhood where WandaVision takes place. And it's when she got there, and that she was in this same shock until she finally gets to the house and plot of land that Vision had purchased for the both of them. That's when she finally falls to her knees and cries so hard and has so much pain unleashed that her powers themselves unleash upon the town. And that is what creates the scenario that is occurring in WandaVision, where an entire town has been altered. The reality of the town has been altered, and the minds have been taken over. And really, that the in the very final episode, when she starts to release the minds of the people, and they're all angry at her and furious at her, and they start throwing things at her, she then does the Darth Vader thing and starts to strangle all of them because she can't take them rightfully being angry with her. And that is a villain move. So what's beautiful is, and another thing in that show, halfway through the show, agents investigating what's going on break into the her alternate dimension town, and she kicks them out and throws their technology back at them. And she has this great Magneto scene, going all the way back to Magneto in the first X-Men film in 2000. There's a great scene where they're at the train station. Magneto's walking out with Rogue's body, and he has Sabretooth and Toad with him. And the entire police force is aiming their guns at them. And Magneto simply raises his hands, and all the guns get taken out of the hands of the police officers and turned on them. And this is the exact thing that Wanda does. Well, she doesn't turn everyone's guns, but she turns everyone's guns onto the guy leading the U.S. government that's trying to break in. And so all these agents of, I can't remember if they're damage control, if they're Star or whatever it is, but there's all these U.S. agents with guns trained on Wanda, and she turns all the guns to face the guy commanding them. And this is the same guy, by the way, who is telling her she can't bury Vision. He's the property of the U.S. government. We can do what we want to with him. And that's the scene where she, in the flashback, where she busts through their shielded window and goes down and kind of touches Vision's head one last time and to say goodbye. And that, to see this sort of paramilitary force pointing guns at her, and they've already taken everything from her. To me, all of WandaVision really serves as the growth for her character in the direction of what's happening in Multiverse of Madness. Like, all the buildup is already there. She's literally already doing it. She's already doing the villain thing, because she's, by the midway point of WandaVision, she's conscious of the fact that she's controlling this world. Maybe at first she couldn't really recall. Maybe she was still in that shock of what had happened, that she was so happy to have Vision back that she didn't care. But at the same time, halfway through that show, she's aware, at the very least, that she's created this false world and does not really care what's happening to these people. So she's already on the villain path in WandaVision. And with the setup of the Darkhold being that it affects whoever it touches, and clearly with Agnes, it had already infected her long ago. When we get to that finale, and I really thought the final episode of WandaVision was fantastic, but when we get to that finale and she assumes her full Scarlet Witch form and she takes the Darkhold, there is that final cutscene that we have where she's at that little orchard area that Doctor Strange meets her in, and her Scarlet Witch astral projection is flipping through the Darkhold. So in essence, her villain side is still at work within the WandaVision show. So understandably, I was one of the people watching Multiverse of Madness in theaters the first time thinking, but what? But she's a hero. Can't we at least have a little arc here? But, in rewatching WandaVision after Multiverse of Madness, I really felt like, no, WandaVision was the build-up to her becoming a villain. But it was the writer of Multiverse of Madness who said, why don't we just move her being a villain to the beginning of the movie? Because the original version of the script actually had her being the villain at the end of the movie, and it was more of a final battle. But I think the movie benefits so much from Doctor Strange having an actual villain. The first Doctor Strange was an entertaining movie. It was very visually stunning to watch. But it really suffered from underutilizing Mads Mikkelsen. He really wasn't a villain. He was the muscle. The real villain was on his way. I feel like Doctor Strange is only slightly better in many ways than Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, because that's the same situation where Galactus is coming, and he's the threat, and the Silver Surfer is really just the muscle. And you know, Doctor Doom is in there, but he's not really the enemy. He's not. I mean, he's a villain, but he's not the main threat. So it's just kind of you just have all these kind of half threats, and you're not really seeing the heroes challenged to their absolute maximum potential. And what's great about watching Multiverse of Madness, especially on rewatch, is really seeing Doctor Strange be tested. Every single scene that he goes against Scarlet Witch, he's really being pushed to his absolute limit, and either escapes by the hair of his chinny chin chin, or Scarlet Witch is simply distracted and going in a different direction. But what I also love about this movie is it doesn't depower our hero or villain in order to make the victory more successful. It really uses their powers to the absolute maximum, and that element is showcased when they face the Illuminati. My favorite sequence in the whole movie is actually the entire Illuminati sequence, because I've heard of it. I never picked up an Illuminati comic, but I did see them when I was picking up The Death of Silver Surfer. I saw those issues. I was like, what the hell is this? What's Illuminati? So seeing this MCU alternate version, it's an alternate within the alternate. Seeing that was really cool, because it was like, oh shit, and like I get to see Professor X, Patrick Stewart, return, which was and hearing the theme, it's like, how many times have you know the nerds begged the studios to put the X-Men cartoon theme in the movies. Stop being pretentious filmmaker people and just do the right thing. And finally we got that with the arrival of Patrick Stewart. That was really something. That was really fun. And seeing the fan casting of John Krasinski, and now, after watching this movie like 4 or 5 times, I can't unsee John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic. Now I want him to be Mr. Fantastic, because I really like his take on the character. I thought he performed it very well, and I hope he gets to be the one who plays Mr. Fantastic in the upcoming Fantastic Four movie. If it was him and Emily Blunt, and they get, and just bring back Michael Chiklis, because he was still perfect as the Thing. I go back and watch those Fantastic Four movies, and much of that casting feels weird, and it's not, they fit. I love the Fantastic Four cast, but they still feel odd. They totally fit chemistry wise amongst each other, but they still feel weirdly cast. Like Chris Evans as the Human Torch never felt right to me, and Jessica Alba, I don't know. I just didn't see her as Invisible Woman. I thought she's a great actress, but this is not quite the right role for her. If you're going to put her in a Fantastic Four movie, there's got to be another character that's right for her. Someone who matches her energy. I feel like she might fit better in like the X-Men universe. Maybe as a certain psychic character whose body turns into diamonds. Maybe. But anyway, but Michael Chiklis just nails it. But anyways, that whole Illuminati sequence where we get to see, again, people who are not happy with Doctor Strange. I really enjoy this about Sam Raimi's movies, that he's not afraid to make the hero somebody that, even if he's likable to the audience, is not necessarily likable to the other characters. He's still got sort of a chip on his shoulder, but he's got something to earn as well. And what I love is keeping characters in character. And also, speaking of cameos, Haley Atwell as Captain Britain. I loved that. That all that was fantastic. I want them to do a Captain Britain show now, because she has just killed it so hard. I would love to see a double show of Captain America through the years with Agent Carter and Captain America, but he's not supposed to be Captain America, and how he gets that shield, but also a what if Agent Carter shield, or no, Captain Carter, where Chris Evans is Tiny Cap again. I would love to see that show, Captain Britain. That would be fucking cool. But anyhow, keeping characters in character, Patrick Stewart's Professor X is the only character who would know for sure that this Doctor Strange is the type of person who would do the right thing and keep his word, because within a second he can read your entire mind. So I really love that he's the one who sort of stays behind longest out of the rest and says, you know, here's the actual information you need to get out of here. I believe that you are the one who's supposed to do the right thing and to win. So, and which is also supported by Avengers Endgame, where when Hulk goes back to 2012 to get the Time Stone from the Ancient One, she says Doctor Strange is supposed to be the greatest of all of us. And it's interesting because he's such an asshole and nobody really likes him because he's an arrogant jerk. But that's also part of his journey in this movie. But through that characteristic, it's Professor X who's the one who's able to say, yeah, I mean, he's kind of unlikable, but he is the person who's going to do the right thing. That, to me, I just love stuff like that. Keeping characters in character, but also Professor X is the one guy. If you're going to trust anybody's word, Professor X's word is such a word to trust. And that faith that Professor X had emboldened me even more. Like, okay, this is the right Doctor Strange. You're cool, Benedict Cumberbatch, or at least 616 Cumberbatch. But yeah, so I really enjoyed all these conflicts where also, you know, again, speaking of the Illuminati sequence, part of what makes it great is we're seeing Scarlet Witch take on the Illuminati, fighting the Monica Rambeau version of Captain Marvel, which was awesome. It was really incredible. That was the case. I don't care that you recast that or you did the flip. That's totally cool. And that actress kills it. She was fantastic in Obi-Wan. I wasn't a fan of that Obi-Wan show, but I did think her performance was just nailed it. But seeing that battle, it's like, it would be so lame if for some reason one of them was depowered to make it a more affordable action sequence, or well, how'd they win? Well, Kryptonite showed up at the last minute, so Captain Marvel could be depowered. No, Scarlet Witch's powers are just that powerful. That's how good she is. I really appreciated that they did not take those cheap shots to win. And that really, this movie's about something. It's about Scarlet Witch's sort of pain, that her pain and suffering, and that she's really had no one to be there for her since the events of Infinity War and Endgame. Like, she got a little revenge on Thanos, but she didn't even get to have the killing blow. She's just got all this lack of closure and all of this baggage against the very people that are supposed to be supporting her, are all just scattered to the wind, and the government doesn't care. They're like, no, your boyfriend, your dead boyfriend's property of the U.S. government now. Piss off, you know. All that baggage is inside of her, and she just had nobody to help her out. And I mean, this is the truth in what makes a lot of people upset and bad and go wrong in the first place in the real world. That's why it makes sense in a movie. But all that baggage being there, her whole plot in this movie is to use America's multiverse transporting powers to go directly to the universe where she's a parent, which happens to be the one that the Illuminati are in, but to go to the one where she's the parent of these kids for real and kill that version of the Scarlet Witch and then take her place, and hopefully the kids will never know the difference. But what I like about this movie, there's also, on America Chavez's side, she needs to grow up and really take control of her power. And Doctor Strange really never gets a moment to be a true teacher, but he does just at the end have faith in her. I think that's, although it would have been nice if he kind of had his own Professor X moment with her and just say, hey, have you tried controlling it? Like, literally, why don't we just try it right now? One little scene of them trying to do it would have been cool. But what I do like is that she gets her own little moments of recognizing her power throughout the movie that feed into her realizing that maybe it's possible that she could control it. And the truth is, her conflict with Doctor Strange is that Defender Strange did not believe in her. He just saw her as a means to an end. Well, you may be alive, but you're also the object of the villain's eye, so I need to take you out of the equation. You know, that ultimate objectification is what she had to run from. Like, this dude didn't believe in me. You don't believe in me. You think you do better with my powers than I could. And Doctor Strange, his arc is realizing in this movie that he doesn't need to be the one to save the world. He just needs to support the people that do. And giving her a little faith, I think, is actually much more powerful in the long run. I hear the woke complaints and all that, but not everything is wokeness. Not everything is Hollywood trying to be woke. Sometimes you do have a lot of characters you're trying to deal with, and you just got to give them the appropriate amount of character development. I think, when it comes to like Captain America Civil War, killing the dad for Black Panther gave him a motivation, but it was a motivation that's really a movie length kind of motivation, and he's only in there for like 5 minutes, so it completely undercut the strength of the first Black Panther movie, which really should have been more about Killmonger trying to kill T'Chaka as opposed to T'Chaka's already dead. I think you gotta know when you have the real screen time to earn a character's development. And that's something that Sam Raimi fully understands. It's like, yeah, it's gonna seem like not as much emotional stuff is happening because we're not killing anybody or doing anything like that, but it's because that's how much time we have on screen to properly tell these stories. And if Scarlet Witch is going to be a successful villain, it's a fantastic suggestion from the writer to make her the villain from the beginning, so you can just, really, the movie's about dealing with that. So when we get to the finale of Multiverse of Madness, oh my god, and my favorite visual in this movie, so Evil Dead, so Sam Raimi, and so metal, bro. When Doctor Strange must use the Darkhold in order to summon the dead body of Defender Strange, and he gets attacked by the evil spirits that are supposed to prevent you from doing that. These rules were never established beforehand, but it's okay because they establish it in the moment. That's fine, whatever. And it makes enough sense. But when he gets control of the souls and turns them into a cape, it's very Spawn, very epic. I love that moment. And Danny Elfman brings it in with the electric guitar work. It's so wicked and fun. But that visual is so incredible to me. I'm like, this movie has so much going for it. I really think non-nerd fans, frankly, I think a lot of these people who are saying they're tired of this stuff, they're not true nerds. They're not people who come to this every single time because they really love superheroes and fantasy. They just watch movies, and this happens to be what's on. I think that a lot of the people talking about superhero fatigue, you're only having that fatigue because you're not actually into superheroes. I'm into superheroes. I'm gonna go watch this no matter what. I don't know who the heck the Marvels are, but I'm going to go watch the Marvels, and it happens to be all these characters set up by the previous movies. It's awesome. But anyway, so when we get to that finale, and Doctor Strange has that faith that he gives to America Chavez, and in that moment she realizes that the only solution, because Scarlet Witch is never going to stop. They already been through this whole movie, and she has just been unrelenting. And one of the examples of her not stopping is she takes over the body that she's going to replace anyway. So the Scarlet Witch that has the parent has the kids, And when she kills the Illuminati, her body gets, she walks on glass, she gets her leg cracked, limping, all that stuff. I mean, she abuses that body because she doesn't care. She's going to kill it anyway and replace it when she gets America's powers. So all that stuff is, it's very hardcore. It's unspoken. There's no line of dialogue of her going, "Oh my God, I just brutalized that body. Do I feel bad about this?" You know, no, because she doesn't care. But again, it's visual storytelling. The fact that you have to watch and pick these things up as they go is what a good movie does. You know, that's what, you know, you watch City Lights, and that's what Charlie Chaplin does. He literally has no lines of dialogue, but you're watching him. You're watching him have these little intentions where he tries to help someone. Oh, but then he slips on something and he makes the problem worse. And then he is helping them, but he's also trying not to hurt himself at the same time. But he keeps hurting himself trying to help them. And all these little things, they're actions, but they're also intentions. So when you're seeing Wanda control alternate Wanda's body and not care about what happens to it, that's visual storytelling about what's going on with her. And again, when we reach this finale, and America has seen how far Wanda will go, and she realizes this woman's just not going to stop until she gets what she wants. So I'm going to give her what she wants, but not the way she wanted it. And so America punches a portal that goes directly to the 813, I forget what the hell the universe is called, but she punches a portal that goes directly to that universe, and that's what she wanted, but the other Scarlet is still there, and the kids see her, and they're immediately freaked out, like, what the hell are you? What the hell are you doing here? And they start throwing things at her, and she realizes they're terrified of her, and she realizes the jig is up, like her plot is over, like the kids now are exposed to the fact that she is who she is, and there's no hiding her intention. You know, she didn't care what she did to everybody else as long as those kids thought that she was the real mom. But here she is exposed, and you know, they set up a lot that the Darkhold changes you, or it sort of boosts who you are, but it doesn't control you in every single aspect. So really in that scene, and they talk about this on the commentary as well, she's kind of forced to take ownership of her choices and realize that they are her choices. So it's a really beautiful thing when the kids are terrified of her and she has no choice but to accept the fact that her plan is over, and she must choose to stop being violent. She's so powerful. And this is the beauty of the writing of Alan Moore's Watchmen, that in Watchmen, you know, the villain who knows that Dr. Manhattan, who has so many powers, he can multiply himself infinitely, and he can, you know, he can turn anything into anything. He can't be stopped by physical force, but if you know what means something to him, and so much of the villain's work in Watchmen is destroying Dr. Manhattan's personal life. All of his friends and his former lovers, they make Dr. Manhattan think, oh, you killed them with your natural radiation. And so he's like, oh no, shit, I'm killing people I love. I gotta get out of here. And then the whole world thinks he was responsible for killing his friends and love interests with his natural radiation. And so with that kind of haunting notion, he, as a character choice, leaves to Mars because he feels he's lost all of his ties to the world. But it has to be a character choice. And so that same thinking is here. It has to be a character choice. If this person is truly that powerful, they have to choose to not do the next thing that they want to do. It has to be their choice. That's the only way you can truly get to them. And if they have no feelings at all, then you're not going to win. But, you know, Scarlet Witch, like Dr. Manhattan, although they may put off this vibe of I am omnipresent, I am omnipowerful, I can do whatever, they might put that out there, but in reality, they are feeling people who feel just as much as everybody else, if not more. The more they put out that they don't feel anything is actually, you know, the opposite. geometrically feel so much more than what they're showing. And it's such a beautiful scene when she kneels before the 813 Wanda, and she just touches her face, and it's like this kind of moment of forgiveness. And it's really beautiful that she comes to that choice, because really Scarlet Witch is the one with the biggest emotional baggage, and it has to be dealt with in this film. And one of my favorite lines Doctor Strange has is when he first confronts Wanda, thinking that she's still an Avenger and still helpful. When he first confronts her, she says, I figured at some point you would come by and want to talk to me about what I did to that town, Westview. And he replies to her, you made the right decision in the end, and that was never in question. And that, so already he has so much faith in her as a person that he's like, he doesn't even need to talk about it. He's like, you're an Avenger, you're a good person, you screwed up, but you made the right choice, and I never doubted that. And so, even though she's toe to toe with him for this whole movie, those words that he said at the beginning of the movie ring true to this finale, where it took giving her what she wanted in the worst way possible, but that's what allowed her to finally stop when she was caught, busted by the very people she was going to try to fool, and forgiven by the person she was going to try to kill. And she realized there's no more game to this anymore. I have to stop. She had to wake up. Alcoholics call a moment of clarity. And in that moment, she's taken back to her dimension and decides to destroy the I forget what that building's called, but it's the building that the Book of the Damned comes from. But she decides to destroy it in every single universe. And that's beautiful. To have that arc where someone has faith in her at the very beginning of the show, and she does everything she can to erode and erase that faith. But because of certain decisions made, because she's forced to face the emotional consequences of her decisions, that's what makes her sober up and straighten up and actually return right back to that phrase. You were always going to make the right decision at the end. And I never had any doubt in that. And that to me is what's so beautiful, is that even Doctor Strange, in a way, gets validated by him simply having faith in the other girl. So it's a nice circular little story. And of course, there's Sinister Strange and Multiverse's Dreams and all that stuff, but all that's fun. But the real core of what makes this movie so great is that attention to the character journey, in particular of Scarlet Witch. The hero is made better by the strength of how well the villain is written. Because the villain really represents all the dark edges and dark possibilities of the hero. And that's what we got out of Sinister Strange and Defender Strange, is all these possibilities of what Doctor Strange could have done and why Doctor Strange tries to stay on the responsible path. But even he gets a little arc of realizing, well, maybe I don't have to shoulder all the responsibility. And actually that is what saves the world, is that he opens up a little bit himself and has a little bit more faith than he had before. So I really love this film. I think it is a genuine film. Sam Raimi is a master filmmaker. And Michael Waldron, a really great writer. Can't wait to see what else this guy does. He apparently was a writer on Rick and Morty, so awesome. Love that. So while initially, I believe I gave this movie, what's my new rating system? It's fun time or great filmmaking. Uno Aloha is great time. Dos Aloha is great filmmaking. Double Aloha is both. So I'm giving Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness double Aloha's. Great time, great filmmaking, great stuff all around. So thank you for watching. Remember, you don't have to like, subscribe, or comment. I don't really care if you do. This is just a place for me to get the crazy thoughts out of my head. But if you do, right on. And yeah, get out of here. Get off of YouTube. Go get some oxygen. Go outside. Run around on the playground or something. And if your playground's not safe, go to someone else's playground and play around there. Alright, see you later. Aloha. Keep watching fun stuff. And remember, no matter how far into the darkness you go, you can still make the right decision at the end. Or at least at the end of whatever you're doing right now. Remember these life lessons, because they are valuable and important, and the function of superheroes. And that's all I gotta say. I salute you.